Welcome to Olympian Water Testing, giving you the best in water analysis. Today we're looking at PFAS, forever chemicals, contamination. It's actually worse than previously thought. It is always bad. There's no safe amount of PFAS, and they're very hard to break down. And they can cause things like cancer, thyroid problems, fertility issues. An alarming study has been published by Environmental Working Group. The EWG revealed that the contamination of PFAS, known as forever chemicals, is likely detectable in all major water supplies in the U.S. 43 out of 44 samples taken across 31 states tested positive for PFA contamination, and 41 of those locations were shown to have PFAS detected at levels which independent studies have shown PFAS to pose a serious health risk. These are huge problems, and PFAS aren't something that just causes a little bit of irritation. It can cause things like cancer. And in all those cases where the tests found PFAS contamination had not been publicly reported by the EPA or state environmental agencies. So you could be drinking water with PFAS right now and not know. It's nearly impossible to avoid contaminated drinking water from these chemicals, said David Andrews, a senior scientist at EWG. It was previously estimated that 110 million Americans could have PFAS in their drinking water. However, the results of the latest study would suggest the actual number is sadly much higher. And 110 million is a huge number considering there's roughly about 330 million Americans, and that number could be much higher. It could be 200, could be 300 million, and it's something to definitely take note of. Some of the highest PFAS contaminations was observed in major metropolitan areas such as New York, Miami, New Orleans, Ann Arbor, Washington, D.C., and Philadelphia. So what are PFAS? It's a term that represents a family of chemicals rather than one individual thing, and the name PFAS is an acronym as well. Also may be referred to as more than one individual chemical such as PFOA, PFOS. These all represent the category of the contamination. These chemicals are widely used because of their heat-resistant non-stick properties, which is why you might also know them by as their common commercial name, Teflon. We can see PFAS sources: shampoo, photography, firefighter foams, stain-resistant products, fast food packaging, non-stick cookware, paints, and pesticides, and that's just to name a few. Now, why are they called forever chemicals? Because once consumed, they build up in human tissues and organs and do not break down. They have not been shown to be biodegradable, thus once they're released in the environment, they do not break down, which is quite scary. And what will they do to you? The effects are largely being studied, so the cumulative effects over a lifetime is unknown. However, according to the EPA, the ingestion of PFAS can cause cancer, affect infant birth weight, and accelerate puberty, cause liver damage, negatively affect the immune system, and disrupt normal thyroid function. Now, what are the legal limits for PFAS? Sadly, it's an unregulated contaminant. That means there's no legal limit on how much PFAS can be in your tap water. The EPA only set a health advisory for the chemicals and has no enforceable limit on how much PFAS can be in your water legally. This also means that municipalities are not enforcing this, and as of today, the EPA only regulates 96 contaminants. So they've only set a health advisory thing. That's quite an issue because these can cause a lot of problems. How much PFAS are safe to drink? Essentially zero. Measurement for PFAS is such tiny increments, so the actual amount of that safe to drink is zero. It's like lead. There's no safe amount. Now, will they show up on your TDS meter? No concentrations in PFAS are shown to be toxic at levels at 0.0000001 parts per million. So it's not something that can necessarily be found. Do you have it in your body? Studies conducted by the CDC have shown that nearly all Americans tested positive for PFAS in their bloodstream. In the U.S. alone, 95% of adolescent adults have measurable serum PFOA and PFOS. So in the U.S. alone, 95% of adolescents have measurable serum of there. Now, who do they affect the most? Pregnant women, nursing mothers, infants, elderly, people who are vulnerable. Now, are there water filters that remove PFAS? The contamination is relatively newly discovered, which means none of the typical filters sold in retail have been testified for filtering PFAS. Simple carbon filters do not have PFA testing. Even more advanced filters, made by different, are not capable of removing PFAS. Some reverse osmosis may reduce them, but it varies greatly. So that's not something known for sure. And the filtration to target PFAS does not exist. So that's one issue to really see. This is really scary information. PFAS as forever chemicals is something we really need to take a look at, maybe even more so than the other contaminants because of how dangerous this is. So it's always a good idea to periodically test your water for forever chemicals.